everybody. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. We're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television a couple different ways. In North Alabama, channel 182, and that's on Charter Communications. And worldwide, you can find us on Abundant TV, which is also found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can still find us on Facebook Live and all of the other social media pages. Chuck and Mary Lynn, that's when I don't get kicked off of Facebook. But anyway, for the most part, almost every day you can find us on Facebook Live, YouTube, and all the other Twitter, the whole works. So we appreciate you listening to us. Now, you could be doing anything else right now, but you're listening to us, and we definitely appreciate that. We bring good guests for you. As a matter of fact, I've got two awesome folks with me right now. They've been on the show with me for years, and that's Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey. And they're with Alabama Fair Tax. And I'm going to tell you, I'm all into it. Let's got to make this happen.
That's what we're trying to do. We keep talking it up, but we're in a kind of a doldrums right now. We're in between ending of the last session of the state legislature and getting everybody voted in this November and deciding who's really going to be there to work with next year. So we're kind of treading water right now, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the election, and let's talk about who's friendly, who should be elected, who is friendly to the fair tax, Alabama fair tax.
Well, we've got several folks. So just this past week, I don't know if you've heard of Kimberly Butler's fiasco. They had part of her district was not properly recorded, and so she had a bunch of people that wanted to vote for her, but couldn't because she was not on their ballot. And they finally figured out that, well, she should have been on their ballot, but the state organization says, no, we're going to leave it like it is. So she's doing a write-in vote, but she's doing a write-in campaign. So we gave her a bunch of brochures to hand out to make sure that everybody understood what we're trying to get done. And she's all for the Alabama Economic Freedom Act. So there is one there. We've been talking to our Senator Sam Gavan about this, and he's been talking us up in different meetings. There was one meeting this past a week ago that they were talking about. One of the guys in the Senate wanted to reduce taxes. You know, he wanted to do one of those tinker things with the income tax. Mm-hmm. And Sam said, he told him, you know, you can fix this whole thing with the fair tax. And so we've got that kind of thing going on now in the interim, but we've got to get a solid group of people across the whole state writing their representatives and senators and telling them, you need to do this, or we're going to figure out what to do with you next time around. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's going to take is thousands of Alabamians calling, writing.
The election is this year.
Yeah.
In November.
Mm-hmm.
So need to let them know now.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important. Let's talk about the Senate race. And that was a Senate race and a half, wasn't it? So the folks who are in it, this is not really a Democrat or a Republican thing. So, I mean, you need to be talking to both sides.
Well, we have over time talked to several folks on the Democrat side, and the bill's been explained to them. Now, this is separate from Mo Brooks's race for the Senate. This is representatives in the House. We've talked to 6 or maybe 10 or 12 Democrats, and if you look at there are not that many in the House anyway. But we were talking to them because they need to be a part of this too. It's like you said, it's not a Republican or Democrat bill. It's a people's bill, and they need to be behind it, both sides. Mm-hmm. And
it's for people who pay taxes, and that is going to be more people now with this new Make America Poor bill.
Make America Poor. Wait, there's more than that.
That's my favorite.
Is that yours?
Hands down, yeah, because that says it all. It's when you double the size of the IRS, they have more 186 or 87, depending on who you're talking to, thousand IRS agents,
Mhm.
which is more. There'll be more money spent on the IRS than on the border, the Department of Justice.
Mhm.
I think the Department of
The Pentagon.
the Pentagon, and anyway, combined. So this is going to be one of the biggest agencies in the country. And despite the fact that they say they're not going to audit anyone under 400,000, when that amendment was, when the Republicans tried to add that amendment to the bill, it was hands down voted down by the Democrats. So it's going to be, I think, people who make under 25,000 have 13 times more chance of being audited than people, especially people who have billions of dollars.
They want all those extra pennies. You know what they say about bank robbers, right? Why do they rob banks? Because that's where the money is. So where the money is, as far as people paying taxes, it's 400 and below, believe it or not, because there's a lot more people making that amount of money than there are millionaires and billionaires.
And the people who make under 25,000, a lot of them have EITC, the different parts of the income tax. So that's who they're going after, the people who have money, because there's not, you could fund the federal government for about a day and a half, less than a week, if you confiscated every penny, not had a 25% or 39% tax. That would be 100% tax. You could fund it for if you took all the money from all the billionaires and millionaires in this country.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, to me, it's like it's soldiers sent out on a war to take us from within. That's what it amounts to me.
Yeah, we were talking to our son yesterday, and he says that's almost the size of the Air Force if they get that many people in there.
Yeah.
Now they're not going to be able to just hire all those people willy-nilly. There'll be a time period, and the only guard against it is to get a different group of people in there to say, we're not doing this, and just not appropriate the funds for that stupid move that they're making.
And one of the questions on the questionnaire for the people they're hiring is, are you willing to use lethal force against Americans?
This is IRS.
The IRS.
Are you willing to pack, and are you willing to use lethal force against your neighbors and fellow citizens? That's what it amounts to.
Well, that means that they're going to be hiring thugs.
They'll hire people.
Like Lois Lerner.
Lois Lerner was pretty good. She was pretty nasty folk that kept a lot of the Tea Parties down, because they when they were doing their 501c3s and 4s, they had this 90 question thing that all the Tea Parties had to answer about.
Questions.
There were intrusive, like who's giving you money? Who's in your group?
Yeah. What are you
Things
reading?
that they don't have a need to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you read? What are they reading?
Mm-hmm.
So we finally kind of put the stop to that once they got her on the run, and finally she resigned. But they'll be right back at it after this 87,000 people get involved here.
Oh yeah.
No, she resigned, but she's still drawing a pension.
She's still drawing a pension, because even though she was,
they found that what she was doing was illegal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, in my book, you need to be in prison for doing that, but But yeah, it's a dirty mess, and it's all part of the agenda, I do believe. So yeah, we've got to, folks, you've got to understand fair tax. I mean, it's just a matter of the country being free the way we are now, or not, or turning into a socialist country.
We have a grandson who's just entered college, and he was talking about being free, and I said, yes, with freedom though comes responsibility. So you have to, freedom is scary to a lot of people, and that's why the fair tax can be scary, because at that point, you're responsible. And well, actually, for Americans, it's so much easier, because you pay your taxes when you buy something. You're done. You don't have to there's no chance of you're being audited. Actually, again, to go back to that new, I call it the Make America Poor bill, because that's
what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah, they're going to be going after small businesses. They practically destroy destroyed them with COVID. Now they're going to go after them for their, what money they have. And it's being audited.
Have a little
can be
problem
very,
here. There you go. Okay.
okay.
Damn it.
Being audited can be very expensive.
Well, I mean, how much will that cost? Okay. You pay someone to audit. You pay all of those folks. Just a ballpark figure. How much do you think that's going to cost us in tax dollars?
Well, right now, just as a example, we figured over the years that it kind of averages out 450 to 500 billion dollars a year to make out those forms, and that's from the big corporations on down to the little small businesses. But most of the small businesses they don't do the fancy footwork. They run it through the personal income tax, and so they're under that system, and that thing it's got tripwires all through it, and you gotta pay out a bunch of money to get somebody to help you fill your forms out, and it's just not right. It's just this system should never be that complicated that you got to hire somebody to fill out those forms for you. And I get so miffed by these income tax outfits that that are on the TV said, come to us and we'll save you all this money, and they'll go through all these complicated things that they can do for you. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I thought it was just I make a certain amount of money, I'm supposed to pay this amount, here's the check, what's the problem? But and that's the reason why we so sorely need the fair tax, is that the problem under the fair tax is I've got to decide how much tax I want to spend, or I want to pay. And the way you do that is you only buy things that new products and services that you're going to use for your personal use. You buy those new products and services and you pay the tax, and you're done with your tax. And I can sit down and decide the tax on that car is X amount. And so this year I need a new car, and so I'm willing to pay that tax this year to get that car. So I'll go buy the car, pay the tax. I'm done with my tax.
Yeah, and the thing about the people who make more money are more willing to think less about how much they're paying for things. If they will buy the more expensive cars that have, right. Cars are beyond the point. I got so tickled watching. It was on Fox. I think it was this week. They were talking about buying used yoga pants, and I thought our granddaughter loves Lululemon, where you buy used clothing. They made it sound like such an awful thing, but for the people who do, and like I said, our granddaughter bought her prom dress at Lululemon, and it was a beautiful prom dress. That's great. But, for people who want to spend their money there, who don't want to pay a sales tax, there you go. It's the tax is already incorporated in the cost.
Right. Every house that's been lived in prior to you buying it, no federal tax on it, or in our case, no state tax either. So it's a win-win situation, and it's family oriented because there's a feature in there called the prebate that pays you back at the first of each month the amount of tax you'll have to pay in a given month up to the poverty level for your situation. And so you have no out-of-pocket funds while you're buying whatever you want to buy.
Right.
And then once you get above that poverty level, you become a discretionary spender at that point and start actually paying the tax. So
for people who don't want to pay taxes on groceries, that's incorporated in the fair tax. You don't pay taxes on anything up to the poverty level, and for a single person, that's
$1,133.
Okay.
$1,133 a month
a year.
No, it's a month.
For the federal.
Yeah, that's for either one of us. $1,100 a month that's tax free.
Okay.
For the.
I thought you were saying they get that much back.
No,
that's not the prebate. That's the
amount of money that's earned, however you get it, for a single person, up to the poverty level for a single person.
Mhm.
So $1,133 is tax free, and for their necessities of life, and the necessities of life for them is anything they say is a necessity of life.
Mhm.
And that at that point, the U.S. government doesn't get to tell you that what you can spend your money on, because they don't get a say in it anymore.
Mhm. For people on fixed income, that's a pretty good amount of money usually, especially for Social Security.
Oh, yeah.
That a good portion of that is untaxed. It used to be that Social Security itself was untaxed. Now a portion of it is untaxed, but it's still you still pay taxes on Social Security under the income tax.
Yeah.
So
Now, realize that a single person is allowed. It's called a family consumption allowance. That's allowed as being tax free. At the state level, that's only like $73 a month. But a person that's living on $1,100 a month, that's a lot of
that's
money.
a lot of money.
So that's the way it works out, and it's the same for everybody across the board. If I make twice that much, I'll get twice that much a month. If the allotment is twice that much a month for a couple, for instance, it'll be $146 that you get tax free.
It has nothing to do with your income. It's
Yeah.
strictly the size of your family, and it's optional. If you don't want to sign up for the prebate, you don't have to. You can be anonymous.
Yeah. The numbers we're talking about, that $1,100 is based on the Health and Human Services poverty level for a single person in the year of 2022. So that's something like $13,590, something like that. But if you take 1/12 of that, that's $1,100, and that's tax free.
I wanted to mention this to our listeners. This is being taped right now. So if you're watching this, it's not a live show. So you can send email to me if you have any questions. And then that's Donna@afternoondrivehome.com. Donna@afternoondrivehome.com for any questions that you may have. What I really like about this prebate is it actually encourages families. We've talked several times about, even folks in this area have decided to get divorces, especially older couples. They're getting divorces. That way, they're not paying so much in taxes, and it's helping them out with their Social Security. But this actually encourages folks to stick together and stay together as a family. I like that.
That shows that the IRS is actually a social engineering program.
Right.
They want to tell you how to live your life. And if you live your life the way the good people do, the way the government says the good people do, then you're okay. But that good people paradigm changes depending on what the government wants.
We just saw that paradigm change this past Friday.
And with the Poverty Act.
Yeah, we're going to really increase your poverty act.
Yeah. I was reading this morning
the previous bill that they had.
No, it's the climate bill, the climate part of it.
Yeah.
In Scotland, they just cut down 14 million trees to put up 21 wind turbines.
Isn't that smart?
Yes. So, and then there's also, they want to put in a pipeline, a 1,300-mile pipeline to take carbon dioxide from one area of the country to another.
And store it.
I have no idea what they're going to do with it, because greenhouses could buy it to, plants need carbon dioxide to grow. And so that's actually one way to take all the carbon dioxide out of the air, and you can starve people because there will be no plant growth.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with the fair tax, but you'd be less apt to if people start spending their money on what they think they should be spending it on, and they start looking at the amount of money they're paying in taxes, because they'll actually see on their receipt the amount of tax they're actually paying after all this. You have no idea what kind of tax you're paying now.
No, right now you don't have a clue. If you really put the pen to the paper, it'd probably freak you out. I mean, you would just be, why am I working?
This is going to make it, this is going to talking about this responsibility thing. People will start saying, oh, wait a minute, what the heck am I doing spending all this money, giving all this money to the government? And they're going off and doing all this stupid stuff.
Well,
And it'll be harder for them to do that.
I'd like to defend my reasoning for talking about the climate bills.
No, that was what it was about.
Yeah, it's about social engineering. They want you to buy an electric car. And in fact, the part of the bill is giving $4,000 to people who buy an electric car. Now, if you can pay $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 for a car,
I don't need you $4,000.
Yeah, now how many people who on a fixed income can go out and pay $60,000 just to get $4,000? So, that's social engineering, and that's what the income tax is all about. It really isn't about raising money. For a long time there was a post office box in Atlanta where they gave I think it was $20 million or $22 million in rebates to one post office box, and they didn't even worry about it. They didn't even go after the people who were defrauding the government. Of course, now they're going to use guns to do that, but
how can that go wrong?
Yeah,
at all?
Yeah. So.
But yet, if I owe $500, they're going to come after me with all the pressure possible. But they're there to intimidate. I mean, that's been the whole idea anyway for decades, is to intimidate folks.
Exactly. And that's what the Gestapo were in Nazi Germany. And as harsh as that sounds, that's where we're going. We're looking for when you take 187,000 agents with guns to collect money that they don't even really care about because they can print money. So it's
160,000. They're increasing by 87,000, adding to what they got. And it's 160,000.
That's correct. It is. Well, it'll be over 160,000, but because right now there are around 80,000. We got 29,000 border agents. So you look at.
So it shows you this, what she was talking about. They think that it's more important to squeeze every dime they can out of U.S. citizens who are paying for all this stuff that we're having to pay for because of the border situation, and yet they're not doing anything about the border.
Okay, let me say this. I've got to say this. Okay, let's say I'm the dumbest socialist on earth. Okay, I just don't get it. I don't see what's happening here in the United States right now, and I'm for all these dumb programs. Somebody somewhere in the back of my mind, somebody's got to pay for this. I mean, you can't cripple the people who are actually working. You can't do that. I mean, it doesn't. I'm talking about common sense, not common core math. I'm talking common sense math. It doesn't work.
For a while, it does, though.
Yeah,
for a very short period of time.
It'll work until that inflation curve gets heads north, and also the value of the dollar just crashing. That's when they'll realize, and they'll say, oh, it's me. Why did I do this?
Yeah, and
that's another part of the agenda too, though. That's another part.
That's part of it.
As far as the income tax goes, American citizens pay that. But with fair tax, everyone pays it. So when you have people coming from all over the world to the United States, getting the benefits that they get, they will also be paying the taxes anytime they buy something. So people who are not paying taxes right now will be paying taxes.
Well, and then people who have shady jobs, like the drug pushers are always going to be around, prostitutes, whatever, are always going to be around. They're actually paying. If you're illegal, you're going to pay.
And the illegals won't be able to get the prebate because you got to prove that you're a U.S. citizen in the state of Alabama.
So if you're a United States citizen, you're actually being rewarded for a change.
So and this is in the bill. You got for the Alabama Economic Freedom Act. You got to be a U.S. citizen, an Alabama resident, and be able to prove it. You got to have a no kidding, provable Social Security card, and then you can apply for and get the prebate. Although you don't have to apply if you want to be totally anonymous and you don't want that prebate, you can live off the grid, so to speak. But if you want the prebate, you have to meet those requirements. And typically when you check when you have a system where you actually are checking a person's social security number, then a lot of these crooked guys that have the store-bought social security numbers won't be able to get into the system.
Uh-huh. Well, that seems like it just takes care of a lot of issues that we're having right now, and they're big issues.
The more complicated you can make something, the easier it is to cheat and
Right.
to do things like control people. With the fair tax, it's simply you buy something, you pay the tax. You don't have to keep a receipt. You aren't audited at the end of the year. You don't have to go back for the extra taxes that you paid. It's done. It's a done deal.
And now the folks that are just new to this are sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, where's all this tax money going? Well, in the state of Alabama, the retailers will collect the tax. They'll be reimbursed to collect it, and they'll send that to the state sales taxing authority, which is already in force. They have a sales tax division, and it'll be on a single form and it'll be the retailers only, and they'll send a single form in because they don't have all that complicated stuff. I sold $10,000. Here's $650 of that as tax, and I'm done. And if I have somebody return something and I have to give them a credit for it, well, then I'm able to even get that few dollars back, or just credit myself those few dollars for things that have been returned. And everything's copacetic, and in a single form that can do that.
A one-page form.
And it's one page. So, and an audit trail is retailer to sales tax authority to retailer. I didn't say individual in there anywhere now, did I? Because they're not in there. Same for the federal fair tax. It's the state, that state taxing authority can contract with the U.S. government to collect this tax for the state. And the money will be collected from the retailer, just like the Alabama Economic Freedom Act. It'll go to the federal, it'll be the state taxing authority federal division. And then that'll go to the treasury. And so now the audit trail is retailer to state taxing authority, treasury back to those guys to the retailer. That's it.
I'm going to tell you, I think this will bring ambition back. I really do. Now, we're all ambitious. Anyway, I guess it's just when we were born, grew up in the 1960s and the 70s, like the best time ever. Actually, I'm going to argue that point. I think the 1940s and 50s were the best. 1940s, especially 1940s. And I don't think there's a thing wrong with ambition. I just really don't. It's a driver. It's what's made America great. Ambition from the past. People are not afraid to step out on a limb. But if they're afraid they're going to get audited every time they turn around, the last 2 years, we've had our taxes done. The state of Alabama, for some reason, thinks Donna and Fiesel Associates tax number 742878155 is not a real business. I've had to go and prove to them that I'm a real business. This is the state of Alabama. What in the world?
It's not like they're overcome with a whole bunch of people.
Well, I think I've ticked off a lot of people statewide too.
I'd like to add one other thing too that we haven't been talking about today, but that is property tax. Now, here in Alabama, we are blessed with the lowest property tax, I think, probably anywhere in the world.
Sort of.
But with the fair tax, for 1 cent more, and right now with the state it's 6.5%, and then a fraction of a cent for the cities and counties. So say for around 7% sales tax, we can have our property taxes paid at the same time and bringing in the same amount of money. The fair tax is built to be revenue neutral. We've had studies done. We had at least 3 studies done. Fair tax federally has had studies done for the last 20 some odd years.
It hasn't been that many, but they did it about 4 or 5 years in a row, and it always averaged out right at about 23% for the Fed.
It may not be done officially, but it is done, and it has stayed the same. So, but again, for the property tax, that's a state issue. That could be, we could pay all of our taxes and not have your land, not rent your property, your home, and your land from the government, from the state. You would actually own it for the first time, and we would be the first Americans to actually own our own property.
Yeah, because you
And
don't know it as long as you owe taxes. And interest
exactly.
and penalties are just, compiling and no,
And
you
so
don't know.
start-
Guys, we got to go into a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a few minutes, guys. So y'all hang in there, okay?
I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I heard the voice from heaven say, don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain, now tell the mountain about me. Introduce the problem to the answer, and you will see that problem step aside. There's no place for fear. The God of heaven is near. Step out in faith and face it eye to eye. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear. Shout my name. Proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand. Get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now tell the mountain about me. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand. Get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now tell the mountain about me.
Good afternoon. We're back. Boy, you rock and roll to that song. I really do love that. It's just a real good one. And so let's go ahead and bring our folks back in again, get them going ahead and start their video back up. That's Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, and they are with Alabama Fair Tax. I'm going to tell you, I'm all over that. I just think it's just the best idea ever. And if you really want, if you're Democrat, Republican, who cares? Whatever. This is a citizen. We're Americans. And I'm tired of us being punished. I really am. And I'm tired of the folks who think we're bad people because we're Americans. We feed people all over the world with the things we do. We send missionaries out. I mean, take Kentucky. They're hit pretty hard up there with all those rains. Every church around here is sending a team of people. I mean, that's just what we do. And I kind of like, is it Ray Stevens who had the song, if 10% is good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for the government. I agree with that song. I absolutely do. But I've got Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey back with me, and time really flies. We only have about 24 minutes left of this whole segment. We're just a little bit late going into a break, but that's okay. But guys, welcome back. And so we've been talking about fair tax, Alabama fair tax. I want to get into the nitty gritty of who we need to be sending faxes to in Alabama state, in the elected officials, and those who are actually running for office. Is there anybody that just says, no, I'm not going to do it? Is that somebody I need to pester?
No, it's kind of a problem right now because we don't know who's going to win, but there are guys that will most likely a lot of the incumbents will go back in there, and And one of the guys is Senator Dan Roberts. His constituents need to bug him because he's been briefed on this, and that was the guy that Senator Gavan told him that the fair tax would fix that. Let's see, back in 2020, he and Dan Roberts and Danny Garrett, the representative, were working on one of those little tinker with the income tax, and they got it through as some tax reduction thing they got through. But I'm sitting here trying to figure out how it affected me. Whereas if you put the fair tax into place, the Alabama Economic Freedom Act, it would affect everybody. You know immediately that your paycheck had been affected, because essentially right now you have to you past about $3,000, you're paying 5% of everything you earn to the state of Alabama, with a few deductions and everything. But your paycheck would go up by 5%, and there'd be no loss at the $0 to $3,000, because there'd be no tax on that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be in your pocket, and then you would decide what your minimum tax is. And the key to this thing too is, with the prebate in there, you average for your spending, you average out over all of the money that you spend, the actual effective rate that you pay. And since you're not having to pay tax up to the poverty level, that says that the rate that you have to pay, it's 6.5% for the state of Alabama. That replaces all the income tax and sales taxes that we have now. That would have to you'd have to spend somewhere on the order of a couple of $1 million to actually start paying 6.5%, because of that prebate. It offsets that amount of money at the lower end of the.
In other words, you're paying no taxes up to the poverty level.
Up to the poverty level, you're paying no taxes. And then you start paying a 6.5% on $1,134 that you spend. So you can see that, well, that's not a whole bunch if I've gotten all this below free. So as you go out further, then you start accumulating up towards 6.5% on the money you're spending. And right now, there's not a person in the world that can tell you how much income tax they're paying. I'm sorry, they just can't.
Let me add a little bit to that, though. The 6.5% is the state tax. Right. At the local city and county level, overall, the cumulative cost is 2.05%. So in the Huntsville portion of that, where we live, around the area that we live in, we would be paying a little less than 7% sales tax. Now, right now, the sales tax in Huntsville is 9%. So we'd actually be paying less, plus getting a prebate. And the reason we can do that is because it's on new goods and services. It's not just on goods now.
And you go from 2.3 or so million people paying income taxes in the state of Alabama to everybody spending money in the state. So your tax base just broadens out to everybody spending money.
Yeah. So for each municipality, if we have a formula for the cost for each vicinity, each community and county, and Chuck calls it LUST. It's local user sales tax. So but what it determined, what you do is you take last year's, the amount of money that was brought in with all of the sales taxes that are accumulated in that community. The
amount of money that they depended on to run their city or county.
Or the amount that they brought in last year, basically, is what it is. That money is divided up using that formula. It determines how much that community will pay. Now, like I said, for the city of Huntsville, it's like 0.15%. So
it'd be 6.5 plus 0.15.
Yeah, so it'd be 6.65%.
But we also have to pay the county tax, which is 0.03. So you have to throw that in there too. So it's about 6.851 or something like that.
Yeah. Again, it's less than 7%. So in places that don't have high sales taxes, it's going to be even less.
See, that's how simple this thing is. I go out and I find out how much money is spent on commodities in the state of Alabama, stuff that they take sales tax on.
Mhm.
And I figure out the gazintas and the gozaltas, the stuff that can't be counted for this particular tax, and then end up with a net tax base for that they can collect this tax out of. And I use that same number to determine what the state tax is going to be, 6.5%, or the local tax is going to be, because everybody has their fingers in that net sum that they can get their tax off of, and that's all that's available. So it turns out that the total amount that's collected is 8.55%, but it's 6.5 plus each little segment of money that's collected from the
500, I think 540. I don't know.
I've forgotten that number, but it's right around 500 different entities in the state, cities and
Say
and
550
counties.
just to be
No,
close.
it's 507 or something like that. But all of those guys are collecting their little bit to add up to that 2.05%, she said, to give you the complete 8.55.
Mhm.
So this doesn't hurt anybody's pocketbook at
I'm
all.
gonna say it doesn't. And I'm gonna tell you something else is folks actually want to save money, but they can't. I
Right.
mean, when you hit a certain, requirement, for running your household and that kind of thing, this should encourage that. This should encourage saving money, which is what I would be doing. I'd be saving more, for a rainy day.
Right on your day, just for a moment, there's a new bill.
No, you can't.
Okay.
There was an executive order that was just signed by Joe Biden that to look into this.
Don't give me a headache.
Digital currency. Now that is not something new. They've been studying this for a long time. They don't like fiat money. They don't like dollars. They particularly don't like commodities like gold and silver. So what they want to do is you will have every bit of your wealth will be in a bank digitally, and you can spend that money digitally, but that can also be manipulated. So if the government decides you've got too much money that you're accumulating, then they can cut that off very easily. They did it in Canada with the truckers. They took anyone who donated to the truckers. Now they did that with the fiat money with the people who had bank accounts. Well, if you don't have a bank account, the government can't do that. So what they want to do is it's CBDC. Start looking for it because it's going to be coming out really, really soon. In fact, next year they want to implement it by, I think, either 2023 or 2024. That doesn't give us much time to complain. And in fact, when we spoke to our Senator, Sam Gavan, he had not even heard of it. So CBDC, be aware of it, because at some point your money will be determined. The amount of wealth you're allowed to accumulate will be determined by the government.
All right, I'm over there at the pawn shop and I want to buy a gun. And I get ready to buy that gun and I get this little notice. The pawn shop gets a little notice and that you can't buy it. That's what they want to use that for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There are credit cards that are actually doing that to some companies now. If you want to buy something that you want to buy that they don't allow you to purchase with their credit card, right now you can use your dollars or your, Bitcoin or whatever. Well, whatever. But with the CBDC, the government can determine what you're allowed to buy.
The government figures that out for you.
Mhm.
So
Let's not, every time you guys are on the show, people start talking about, they send me messages about heredity tax. And so I know a lot of really good people who have lost the family farm because, the parents passed away or the grandparents passed away and, they couldn't make it work. What's this going to do about land taxes as far as inheritance taxes?
As far as the state's concerned, there's not much inheritance tax. The only inheritance tax is that the state can collect is allowed by the Fed, and the Fed, I think, they tax property and money that you collect, but
right now,
all that would go away under either system because there'll be no income tax.
Yeah.
So there'd be no mechanism to collect that tax. It'd have to have special tax to do that. And can you imagine trying to get
Yeah.
get that through if you have a fair tax?
Mhm. You know, that's a gift to agribusiness too,
Yeah.
because if you can bankrupt the farmers, the big agri can come in and buy that land and control the government. It's just like Big Pharma did with the vaccine. You know, you can get the government to mandate that you buy your food at the government store or the whatever store their donors came from. So we want smaller government, and the fair tax will actually do that for you.
It's the
that's
one mechanism that most likely will lead to smaller government,
Yeah.
because it, again, at the federal level and the state level, people start realizing how much money they're putting into that tax system that somebody else is getting, and they don't want them to have it.
Yeah. Do you
So
know,
stop giving it to the government.
do you know the size of the government before 1913 was 3% of the GDP? Right now, it's over 23%, and so the government owns more and more of your life as years go by, and we're allowing it. And with the fair tax, it'll be one step towards freedom. And actually, that's why we're involved, because I believe in freedom. And again, that's one of the things that is driving me. It's not the money, because, and I have to say, at the state level, that's another thing that needs to be brought up too. Young people just building their wealth are the ones paying the taxes in Alabama. Not the sales taxes, but the income taxes, because at people who are on fixed income, Social Security is not taxed in Alabama. Defined benefit plans are not taxed in Alabama, and state and federal pensions are not taxed. So people
Military is not taxed.
Well, military is federal pension.
But it's military.
Okay, so military, and so for that reason, people who are over 60, if they've defined their life the way the way to that they can pay the least taxes, they can do that. But young people just starting out, they get hit, and they pay for the state of Alabama.
Yeah, a lot of those things are being taken away by the big corporations too. For instance, my retirement from Boeing is completely different from what our daughter's retirement will be. So.
Sorry.
I've got an alarm going off in there for some reason.
Not mine.
Yes, I said I. But at any rate, the kids in the state of Alabama are paying the tax because of what we just said. The old folks that have done their paperwork and everything, got everything set up.
Yeah.
But they're cruising.
And when we say kids, we're talking about anybody under 60. That's kids to us.
Kids, yeah.
I'm calling people under 60 kids too.
Yeah. We spent the weekend with our son, who lives in Shreveport, and he is going to be 53 this year. So
my son is 43. And so I never, when I was younger, it was like, wow, that's ancient. Now I've got like a son who's 43, so, and I'm calling him a kid. Yeah, he's a kid. Okay, let's talk about other states who are looking at this. If we don't hurry up and jump on it, the first one is going to be the one to get all the new businesses and what have you. I mean, businesses will be coming here like crazy. The state of Alabama will be a haven for businesses. The first one who does it's going to get them. Okay, so who is pretty close? What other states are really looking at it seriously?
Well, we've got Georgia and Nebraska are looking at it. Oklahoma has just started looking at it. We've had South Carolina and Michigan and Minnesota, several other states that have toyed with it. But the ones that are more that are further along with it are Alabama, Georgia, and Nebraska.
And Nebraska's actually further ahead than we are. It's actually passed the Senate there. They are a unicameral.
It didn't pass the Senate. It missed passing the Senate by a couple of votes, but they're doubling down there, and they've got a big donor that's helping them get the word out. And so they've had a strategy meeting, and they've collected their thoughts, and they've got a strategy they're going to use, and now they're breaking out and they're heading out across the state, which is what we've got to do. Mm-hmm. And they are they're working towards 2024 because they're every other year, so their next legislature won't be until 2024.
But again, they're unicameral, so they only have one legislative body to pass through. And
Which doesn't make it any easier, by the way.
The one difference between Nebraska and Georgia and Alabama is that Nebraska, they're trying to get rid of the property tax because their property tax is
Right.
very, very, very large. I don't know about their income tax, but ours is closer to the federal fair tax. Our bill, it covers all sales and income taxes in the state. So, that's where the difference is. But we
Let's
could
talk about
easily.
Herschel Walker for just a few minutes. He's being beat to death by the left, and does anybody know what his thoughts are? Should he be elected? No one knows his thoughts.
Like Herschel Walker, I think.
I don't know what his thoughts are on the fair tax, though. David Perdue was running for Senate there, and no, he was running for governor and lost to Kemp in the primary. So Kemp is going against Stacey Abrams in the fall. So that Perdue has told us he would help us out as much as he can at the federal level, and also he's talking to the Georgia group, helping them out at the state level as well. Now Kemp has got some kind of tax reform he wants to do, but it's not anything near what the Georgia fair tax looks like. So that's a TBD there, but the guys are working to try to make it happen.
Yeah.
But the key thing is we've got Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi just reduced their income tax with the agenda to get rid of their income tax. Tennessee's eating our lunch because they've gotten rid of all their income tax now. Even
Well, they never actually had one.
Yes, they did.
Well,
they didn't. They had income tax on certain things, and they've gotten rid of all the income tax that they had. They have a sales tax, but they don't have a prebate, and their sales tax has to be a little higher, and I think the property tax has to be higher too to cover it.
Yeah.
So,
the states that don't have income tax, Florida, Tennessee, Texas, they have either a really high property tax or a sales tax. Now, Florida has the advantage of being a tourist state. So they derive a lot of their money from tourism.
And they still have a corporate tax. So
right.
There's a zero individual income tax.
But we want to do away with all of it. We want to make it very, very simple for people when they pay their taxes, that it's done. You don't have to accumulate receipts. You can do that if you want to, but with the fair tax, you just it's pay and done.
You won't have to accumulate receipts to prove that you paid taxes.
Exactly. Yeah, the government can't go after you for and that was one of the reasons that the IRS was established. Was they wanted to go after Al Capone. If you remember, they couldn't get him on anything other than income tax evasion. So
they figured out then. We got this scheme that we can use now.
Mm-hmm.
It's organized crime at its finest.
They had their aha moment.
Absolutely. Now, what will this do for folks who prepare taxes, accountants, folks like that?
They're going to be able to get some really good jobs doing some real work with all these corporations and small businesses, everything that are going to need smart accountants.
Yeah, I always say, they're not buggy whips. They're not going to be abolished. That particular job will go away. But for the most part, the people that we know who do that kind of thing, who work, do tax business, they love it.
One of our board members at the federal for the federal fair tax, he's a CPA out in Wyoming.
Yeah, we also
he's a board member, and he's running. We need to do this because I would rather help you build your business and help you to make money and grow your business and put people to work than to tell you, well, I'm sorry, but you owe this much more this year because of this stupid tax thing they just did.
And not only that,
that's what Rhonda's Elite's tax service says. She's been handling my taxes since 2013, since we moved back. And so Rhonda asked her one day when we first, you and I first started talking about all this, she smiled like crazy. And I said, "You're smiling?" And she said, "I want this to happen. I really want it to happen." She said, "Because I get sick of having to tell hardworking people that they have to pay taxes in." She said, "This will be a pleasure. I will love my job when this happens."
We've had CPAs and even IRS agents in our group here in Huntsville that they're here because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one very vocal IRS.
Oh yes,
She's
really
retired now, but she knows what the inner workings are. So.
Yeah, think about it is, we have this bad concept of what the IRS is, but the IRS is made up of people, and there are a lot of people and a lot of smart people in there that I think if they could figure out a way to make the same amount of money and work somewhere else, they'd probably be gone tomorrow.
Oh yeah, they'd be gone.
And the fair tax will do that for them if they'll just help us get it done.
If it be a status job, it's not a status job anymore. I mean, it used to be, along with the CIA, used to be a status job. No longer.
If you think about it, we are all trying to improve ourselves. And people who go to church, who have a church, do that to improve themselves. The IRS is its own church. It wants to manipulate people, social engineering, tell people how to live. And the sad thing about it is that changes from time to time, whoever the big donors are. So if you're, right now it's climate change. So they want everyone to go solar and our son says when he sees coal cars go by, trains with coal cars, he says, "Well, there goes the power for the electric vehicles."
I know. I think about it makes sense.
I've got several memes, of different views of those coal cars on the railroad. And one of them says, here's a load of electric car fuel, which is exactly what it is.
And when you say that really doesn't have anything to do with the income tax, it absolutely does, because that's what the income tax, that's what they're doing. I saw a newspaper article from 1971 talking about climate change, and it said we only had 10 years to live.
Where have we heard that before?
So apparently I heard we were going to die in 1972 because the world there was going to be enough food. In 1981, we should have been dead from whatever was going to happen with climate change. So.
Well, we were supposed to freeze to death in there somewhere.
Yeah, that was in the late 70s. We were going to have an ice age.
Yeah.
What's going to kill us all is stupidity. People who can't.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
Well, what's going to kill us all is if they can siphon off enough carbon dioxide to kill off all the plants.
That's right, because at a certain point, once the carbon dioxide level of the world reaches a certain point, plants won't grow. It'll be a barren desert.
Guys, we've got 1 minute left in this segment. How can folks find more information about this?
Okay, for the state bill, they can go to alfairtax.org, and they're on the home page of it up at the upper right. You can click on understanding the Alabama Economic Freedom Act, and that's a little article that Mary Lynn wrote up on the bill. And then for the federal, it's fairtax.org. That's really an extensive site. There's a lot of information out there. There's most of the research and everything that we use to figure out what we're going to do in the state of Alabama is on that site. So there's been over $22 million worth of studies done on this particular bill, and it's the most studied tax reform bill that's ever been done.
Folks, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you for being on the show. It's always a quick hour. Man, we don't have enough time. You guys take care. See